To cook something that's actually very simple and yet very comforting and rewarding, that incorporates a lot of complex flavor that basically allows you to show off your chefy skills. So what we're going to cook today is something called Coq Au Vin Blanc, excuse my French, which basically just means chicken and white wine. To begin, let's have a look at the ingredients. So what we need first is chicken thighs. These are with skin and they are not deboned, so they have a bone in them. You can also use chicken legs. Just make sure that they have their skin on and have a bone in them. The next ingredient that we have is celery, followed by a carrot and a white onion. This is of course the holy trinity, uh, mostly used in Creole cooking, but in general also used extensively in French and Italian cooking as a base for a lot of stocks and stews, etc. The next thing is bacon. Of course, bacon makes everything better, so we're going to use that. We have a few sprigs of thyme, we have garlic, we have a chicken stock cube. If you have chicken stock, that's even better. I don't, so I'm going to use a stock cube. And button mushrooms, white mushrooms, whatever mushrooms you want, just make sure that they are not too pungent. And then the next thing, which is the most important one, is the wine. So here I'm going to use a Sauvignon Blanc. This is not expensive wine, this is one of the cheapest ones that I could find. The main thing is not how expensive the wine is. The most important thing is that you need to make sure that it's actually dry and crisp. So these are all the ingredients. Let's begin. So I'm using a heavy base skillet here. So make sure that you use something that's actually with a heavy base. And the first thing that I'm going to do is add in the bacon. So I've cut it into small pieces and I'm adding it to a little bit of olive oil. The thing that I want basically to happen is that I want the bacon to cook through and dry out and release all of its fat that I'm going to use to cook the rest of the ingredients. In the meanwhile, the bacon is cooking. What you want to do is basically apply salt and pepper generously on both sides of the thighs and give it a light massage basically. So it should basically cover both of the sides. So the bacon is nice and done, and what I've done is that I've moved the chicken thighs into the same pan with the bacon fat so that it can sort of cook well in the bacon fat. And now what we want to do is we want the chicken to cook nicely from both sides. So you want to keep it cooking on one side for about 4 minutes, and don't touch it in the meanwhile. You don't have to stir it or anything, just leave it be, and after 4 minutes turn it around and let the other side cook. I'm going to cook it in batches at first because the skillet is not big enough for all the pieces. So the chicken is browned up nicely now, as you can see, and it has left quite a bit of its fat as well. We're going to cook the rest of this in the same pan, so we can actually use up all of that beautiful flavor that the chicken has left. So now we're going to just take out the chicken and keep this on the side, and we'll go on ahead with prepping the veggies. Okay, time to prep up the vegetables. So the first thing we need to do is dice up the onion. So first we'll cut it lengthwise. Just make a slit halfway, making sure that you never go to the very end. So that kind of gives you control over the onion. And then you can just cut the other way. And that's basically your diced onion, as fast as you like. Another trick that you can basically use to chop up it even finer is that keep all of this in one group and then you start just chopping it up. It's a bit messy, yeah, sure, but it actually works and it's actually a very good trick. It's actually very fun to do as well. So that's the onion done. Take the garlic, keep it flat on your chopping board, take your knife and with the flat end just give it a quick whack, and what it would do is basically it opens it up and it becomes super easy to peel it. Okay, so I'm going to do that with the rest of the garlic here. So all of the garlic is done. I'm going to put this into my mortar and pestle, add a little bit of salt to it. This basically, the salt acts as an abrasive that makes it easier to break down the garlic, and just going to break everything down so it's actually very small pieces. I don't want to completely lose the texture, but I don't want it to be solid pieces as well. So the garlic is done. This is what it looks like, and now we're going to start cooking all of these vegetables. So this is our pan. As you can see, there's a lot of fat on it. I've removed a little bit. I've only kept what I think I would need, and once it's all warmed up, we have our veggies ready. So we have our carrots, our celery and our onion that we'll go in with, and subsequently we'll go in with the mushroom as well. So we've gone in with our Holy Trinity. What we want is that we want the carrots and the celery to soften up, and we want a slight brown on the onion, not too much. And once that is done, we'll go in with the garlic. Okay, so the onion is cooked through, as you can see, slightly browned up. I've added in the garlic as well, and I'll just wait for it to cook a little bit so the garlic is cooked through. So now I've gone in with the mushrooms, and we want the mushrooms to lose some of their moisture before we proceed to the next step. So now that the veggies are cooked, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of the wine. So again, to remind you, I'm using Sauvignon Blanc. The main thing is that it should be a dry and a crisp wine, and this one is. So I'm going to add this, and it's important to deglaze the pan to get all of those lovely bacon and chicken pieces that might be there. So you just put in your wine and start stirring and start deglazing the pan, and basically that's scraping the bottom. So once I deglaze the pan, as you can see, I'm going to go in with the rest of the wine. I'm not going to use the whole bottle. I need some for myself as well. So I've used about just a little bit more than half. Well, probably a little bit more. So about 2/3, and we'll let it cook for a little while so that the wine loses some of its alcohol. And so I'll just let it cook a little bit on a slightly high flame. Once you make this dish, you'll realize how complex the flavors become just by the virtue of adding this wine. After the wine has cooked through a little bit and lost some of its alcohol, what I've done is I've gone ahead and I've added the bacon back in, and I've nestled all of the chicken pieces nicely into the pan. As you can see, they're all nice and cozy. It's a tight fit, I know, but they look happy enough. I'm going to add a sprig of thyme, 2 bay leaves, and chicken stock, which is basically 1 chicken cube that I've mixed with 450 ml of boiling water. So there you go. So everything is now into this one pot wonder. You need to bring the liquid to a boil, like you can see here. Once it comes to boil, you just need to bring the gas to the lowest and cover it and cook it for a good 1.5 hours. So I moved the pan to a back burner which has a lower flame, and I've kept it to the lowest possible, and I've covered it with a plate, and I'm going to wait for it for 1.5 hours to cook through, and in the meanwhile I'm just going to enjoy the rest of our wine and probably just read a book. Okay, so it's 1.5 hours later, and you can see that the chicken is cooked through. Everything has come together well, very nicely, and the veggies have disintegrated quite a bit, and it looks perfect. And that's all she wrote. Bon appetit.